This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
United States Senator Ted Cruz of Texas joins us, author of One Vote Away, How a Single Supreme Court Seat Can Change History. And, of course, he's host of the very popular podcast Verdict with Michael Knowles, who we have had on this program. By the way, I recommend episode 57, American Oligarchs. That's a fascinating dialogue on the New York Post being blocked on Twitter. And Senator Cruz, it must be nice for you to call into the state where in 2016 you clobbered Donald Trump and won in Alaska. How are you today?
Well, Tom, I'm doing terrific, and it's great to be there virtually. I was actually back up in Alaska a couple of months ago with Heidi and the girls, and it is a wonderful, wonderful state with wonderful people.
Well, I told one of your wonderful staff members, speaking of wonderful, that there are so many people behind you. I know you did not call in to promote Ted Cruz for president, but I'm not kidding. You have a swarm of people ready to help when you run, God willing, in the next cycle. So just keep pocket that away, because you are loved here in the state of Alaska. If you moved up here, you could probably be U.S. Senator in 2 seconds. But we're talking about U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan, your colleague and good friend, and he has a race tomorrow against Dr. Al Gross. Polls show that he's up significantly over the last week, but what do you think about Dan Sullivan?
Well, I like Dan a lot. Dan is a good friend, and he fights hard for the state of Alaska. And I'll tell you that the Alaska Senate race has the potential to shift the balance of the entire U.S. Senate. You know, this is a potentially tough cycle. We've got a bunch of Republican senators who are in very competitive races all over the country, races that are all within 1 or 2 points. 1 or 2 points, they can go one way or another. In the last 5 days, I've been in 5 different states campaigning. So I've been campaigning in North Carolina, in Montana, in Iowa, in Arizona, and right now I'm headed out to campaign in Texas with my colleague John Cornyn. And the reason I'm campaigning in all those states and barnstorming with their U.S. Senate candidates is because every one of those races is within a point or two. And Alaska is a state that y'all have been strongly bright red in the presidential, but in Senate races and gubernatorial races, we've seen Democrats win in Alaska, and this year the stakes are so incredibly high that if Alaskans were to vote against Dan and elect Al Gross, it would almost certainly make Chuck Schumer the majority leader, which would be disastrous for the country.
Absolutely. I have an advertising and political consulting firm, and we have some satellite offices across the nation. One of the candidates we helped in Congress, not when she ran for U.S. Senate, but in Congress, was, I remember in Tucson meeting her a couple times, Martha McSally. And you're looking at this strong, tough, very reminiscent of Sarah Palin, only military, warthog, squadron commander, pilot. And I can't believe she lost her first U.S. Senate race.
Yep.
And then Senator Cruz now, you know, I know there's some appeal to an astronaut running and Gabby Gifford's husband, but it's like, good Lord, what's going on? I mean, what happened to Arizona now? Potentially 2 Democrats. I can't even believe it.
Well, I did 4 rallies yesterday with Martha all across Arizona. And on the one side, I can encourage you. There's enthusiasm. There's excitement. We had huge rallies coming out and a lot of energy. That's a good thing. And we were there trying to emphasize the importance of showing up to vote. But at the same time, actually, what we're seeing in Arizona is quite similar to what we're seeing in Alaska, which is the Democrats like to find these candidates who pretend that they're moderate, who pretend they're something other than what they are. And Mark Kelly in Alaska is doing that. Al Gross Mark Kelly in Arizona is doing that, and Al Gross in Alaska is doing that. And here are the uncontrovertible facts. If either one of them is elected, and we get to a Democratic majority in Congress, their very first vote will be to elect Chuck Schumer as majority leader. If we have a Biden-Schumer-Pelosi government, God help us, they will add 2 new states to the union. the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico, because they believe that will give them 4 new Democratic senators immediately. That will also dilute Alaska's voice in the U.S. Senate. They will grant amnesty and citizenship to 15 million people here illegally. They will massively raise taxes, not just repeal the 2017 tax cuts, but massively increase the taxes of working Alaskans across the state. They will jam through the Green New Deal, which is designed, as Joe Biden admitted, to destroy the oil and gas industry. Now, that would be devastating for Alaska and also devastating for Texas. And on top of that, if there's a Chuck Schumer majority, I believe it is very likely they will pack the U.S. Supreme Court, put 4 new left-wing activists onto the court, which would result in a left-wing majority that will take away our free speech rights, our religious liberty rights, and will effectively erase the Second Amendment from the Constitution. And the Democrats don't want the voters of Alaska to realize those are the stakes in this election, and it's why how Alaska votes tomorrow makes an enormous difference to the entire rest of the country, because our rights quite literally are in your hands.
We're talking with U.S. Senator Ted Cruz from the great state of Texas. I have one other big question, Senator Cruz. You go back to 2016, and whether it was a Kasich or a Ben Carson or a candidate Trump or a Marco Rubio, there was one man who came to Alaska, who talked to Alaskans and said, I understand that there is Arctic policy and infrastructure that needs to be built. It's critical. I understand that there are oil and gas reserves, but we must drill and explore responsibly. I understand the critical nature of the military in Alaska and rare earth minerals and commercial fishing and tourism. And you gave us goosebumps. It was you. It was Senator Ted Cruz running for president. I know you can't speak for other candidates, but why don't more presidential candidates do what you did profoundly? It's why you won and will win again here. Why don't they talk about the importance of Alaska more? And you did.
Well, I don't know, and they should. And Alaska makes an enormous difference in our country from an energy perspective. There are tremendous resources in Alaska. And Alaska, like Texas, look, our states are very similar. As you know, everyone in Alaska always tells me Texas is a cute little state, and I understand that. But we both understand that we can develop energy resources, oil and gas. We can do it responsibly in a way that protects the environment, but fuels our booming economy. We both understand, Alaska, the fishing industry is a big deal. It's a big deal in Texas, too. Not quite what Alaska is, but we've got a tremendous fishing industry, and the national security role that Alaska plays. The Arctic is becoming more and more contested. The Russians are playing in that space. The Chinese are playing in that space. And whether it comes to missile defense, whether it comes to ice cutters, whether it comes to the surveillance that is needed to protect the entire continental United States, Alaska is a critical front in the battle to keep us safe. And I got to tell you, on every one of those, Dan Sullivan and I have worked hand in hand. Listen, Dan is someone who is a friend. You know, a lot of folks in the Senate use the phrase "my friend," and half the time when they say that, they mean someone they absolutely detest. Well, in this instance, Dan and I are friends. Dan's a Marine. He and I actually play basketball regularly together. I'll tell you, your senator fouls a little too much, but that's okay because I do the same.
Oh boy!
But he is fighting every one of those issues I've talked about. Dan is fighting to cut taxes, reduce regulations, unchain the energy industry so that we can create more jobs. Dan is fighting to rebuild the military, and all of those. We've worked hand in hand with President Trump and produced remarkable results for Alaska. If, God forbid, a Democrat gets elected to the Senate from Alaska, every one of those advances will be undone.
Tomorrow, we're talking with U.S. Senator Ted Cruz of the great state of Texas. Tomorrow, we have our national presidential election. Do you think Trump will pull it out with the media bias and all the subterfuge we're hearing about in all 50 states? It's really not only alarming but unnerving. Do you think that the Republicans can win in the top seat tomorrow?
I hope so. Republicans, we definitely can win. I hope the president wins. I've been barnstorming the state, campaigning night and day, trying to help turn people out so the president does win. It's all going to depend on turnout. We are seeing across the country record-shattering turnout. We know the hard left is showing up. They hate the president. They are motivated by anger and hatred, and the far left is going to crawl over broken glass to vote. The big open question is, does everybody else show up and vote? If the common sense conservatives across this country, the people who believe in low taxes and low regulations and lots of jobs, the people who want to defend the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, if the rest of us show up, we'll win tomorrow and have a very good night. But if people stay home, it could be a really ugly night. And if that happens, the Senate is the last firewall holding us back from plunging into the abyss. And that's why the Alaska Senate race is so important, because in all likelihood, it's going to be decided by just a couple of points. And so the difference between whether you show up, whether your friends, whether your family shows up, could very easily be the difference between whether Schumer and Pelosi are in charge of everything or whether we have the ability to stand up and hold back the incoming assault.
He's the author of One Vote Away, How a Single Supreme Court Seat Can Change History. I read it. Brilliant book. He's also the host of the very popular podcast, Verdict with Michael Knowles. And Senator Cruz, thank you. God bless you for the fact that you're going state to state to state. You don't even have your own race. You're doing that for Trump. You're doing that for Senator Sullivan here and for so many other senators and for the country. So please be safe on your travels, crossing fingers tomorrow. And guess what? In 4 years, I'd love to interview you as the next president of the United States. We're hoping for that too.
Well, thank you, Tom. I look forward to it. God bless you, and thank you for being such a strong voice for liberty.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's U.S. Senator Ted Cruz from the great state of Texas, right here on the Tom Anderson Show.